Russian hour from beautiful Devon, with a trip back in time. Russians imported all kinds of equipment to England in the 1970s, like this Zenit camera, binoculars, telescopes, all kinds of interesting stuff. Most people only know about Ladas. We're going to look at some. The Lada has its origins in the 1960s with a joint venture between Italy and the Soviet Union. On the banks of the Volga River, the Togliatti Avtovaz plant grew up around an Italian communist town of the same name. These strong but cheap cars were exported to the UK from 1974, selling up to 33,000 units a year until 1997, when a lack of investment meant that the ageing range could not meet new EU emission standards.
Each Lada is built to survive, to take on loads, and the roughest of roads, to stop safely, to go smoothly. The Ladas. Tough cars, tame prices. Test one at your nearest Lada dealer tomorrow.
We're here at Dunkerswell Aerodrome in Devon with Ed and Julian, who are Zhigulists Lada fans. The airport is historic in its own right, as it was a US Air Force base in the Second World War where the Liberator bombers were based. Now, Ed and Julian are interested in their own historic vehicles, the Lada.
Zhiguli, это машина! Well, this is my low-budget Samara, which I've modified and improved so it can take bales of hay in the back. Modification involved cutting off the rear, as you can see, and I've welded in the child's climbing frame as a bit of extra support. The children were faintly unhappy, but I think they had grown out of it by then. When I first drove it with the roof off, it was as wobbly as a cheese sandwich, but this has toughened it up just a reasonable amount, and it's very good for bales of hay, bicycles and general rubbish in the boot.
How's your Volga?
Volga's running very well. Very well, of course, is a relative term. That probably means to most people that it's just running.
And I see on the side of this Lada it says a Lant Soyuz cargo. What's that about?
Well, I love Russian names, and Russian airlines have fantastic names. This airline appealed to me because of its name. It's since gone bankrupt, but I thought I'd have the stickers made up and stuck on the side of the car.
And it does say London, Murmansk, London. You're not going to tell me that you did?
Well, I was planning to take this to Murmansk and back again, but then a friend of mine told me that Austin Maestros were superior, and he produced one, and we did get to Murmansk and back again without any drama. So I wouldn't say that an Austin Maestro is superior to a Lada Samara. I'd say they're probably equal. They're a good people's car for, you know, tough off-road use.
My Lada Niva, it does deliver me where I want to go. My Lada Niva, it does not shiver when it is out in the snow. So powerful that it can drive up the Wapiti. As I go snowboarding down slopes that are tiny. I bought it second hand, but it always gets me there. For both me and my Niva run.
Leaving the high technology of the aeroplanes behind us, we drive to Ed's home for a cup of tea and a chat over his beautiful Ladas.
My Lada Niva does not consider giving up, you know.
What I like about this model, Ed, is of course you're flaunting your wealth with it, because the 2107, which this is a little bit more upmarket than the other Ladas. So clearly you're a very successful and prosperous man.
People always sit in it and say, "Ooh, did you put the seats in?" You go, "No, they're the originals."
But the funny thing is, this is one of the really early ones they imported, and the British importers removed the chrome grille and threw it in the bin, and put this ugly grey plastic one on, and followed it up with these ugly grey wheel trims, and the whole thing just looks like it's been made out of old wheelie bins. I don't know why you'd do that. That was very odd.
It does look a bit grim. And then, of course, they sort of sex it up by saying it's got adjustable fresh air vents. Oh, you're spoiling me there.
And can I just show you this? A streamlined exterior.
Struth. No expense spared, especially when it comes to the plastics. It's got 2 demister vents as opposed to 1 on the cheaper model.
I have to say though, if you sort of go around it as compared to the sort of cheaper 2105, it is a much nicer car. You know, it's more comfortable. It's just a lot more sort of developed than a 2105, even though it's just the same car underneath.
But of course, the slightly more expensive Ladas didn't sell in Britain because people who brought Ladas in Britain were poor, wanted the cheapest model, no accessories, thrashed it, never serviced it, and then wondered why it sort of sank into the ground after about 5 years, and then they went out and bought another one.
Such a waste, really.
Yeah.
Because the things will go on forever.
I think they chose to be poor, really, because, you know, if you want to be better off, you actually service your car, and then you don't have to throw it away after 5 years.
No, that requires effort, though, doesn't it?
Indeed. And some common sense. Clearly lacking in the British working class. Now this is a happier brochure, isn't it?
Well, by this stage they were less into gluing rubbish on the cars, and they'd realised that a chrome grille was a nice thing to have, and you didn't need to replace it with a section of a wheelie bin. There were some very strange ideas at the UK importers. Never quite worked them out.
Yes,
it's quite an elegant car in itself.
It is, and yes, it's a shame they sort of interfered with it and glued on things that were totally inappropriate. And of course these lovely, rather bland colours, like sort of blancmange colours. This could be sort of mushy pea soup, couldn't it? That's what they should have called the colour. But they probably called it something, you know... Sahara green. No, that doesn't work, does it?
The thing is, the colours were hideously unfashionable at the time, but of course they're all the rage again now. Soft pastel shades.
And you know why they had these colours? Because I met someone who makes paints for cars, and these softer colours are cheaper in that the chemicals, the pigments, are much cheaper when they're bland, right, soft colours. So, where did you get this from?
Well, this is an early promotional model sold by Lada agents, and do you know what it is?
No.
It's more than just a Lada 1200. It's a little radio.
Oh, wonderful. Sounds like you're being jammed by MI6. The nice thing about radio is that I used to listen to Radio Moscow at school under the bedclothes, because we weren't allowed to listen to radio after 9 o'clock. And then I think Radio Moscow used to turn off at, was it 11 o'clock at night or midnight? There was that lovely lady saying, "Good night to you all from Radio Moscow." Da, 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 da. It was fantastic.
See, I tuned into Radio Moscow a bit late in the day. I was at university, and it was about 1989 or thereabouts. I bought a lovely big Russian radio and used to tune into Radio Moscow every night, and then, rather disappointingly, 12 months later, though the radio continued to work, the Soviet Union did not.
Oh, gosh. Isn't it irritating when things like that happen? What's the history on this one, Ed?
Well, this is just the basic 1200 engine, tough as old boots, the sort of original design before they started enlarging it.
The one thing that makes me smile on this is when you irritated that Ferrari owner by mentioning that the only part that can be used on a Ferrari out of a Lada engine is the oil filler cap.
Probably better quality than a Ferrari one as well.
And a hell of a lot cheaper, I should think. Oh. But yes, it's beautifully simple, this, and there's so much space. Well, actually,
there's a slight disadvantage, isn't there, to a right-hand drive one?
You've got lots of space here, where in Russia you'd have the steering column, but in Britain you've got the manifold, the steering column,
brake cylinders.
The brake cylinders. So when you're trying to work on a British right-hand drive Lada, everything's all crammed together.
You lose a lot of skin.
You do. But the saying goes that if you haven't drawn blood while working on a Lada, you haven't done a good job.
Well, here's the most useful accessory that was never sold by Lada UK. A set of lovely Rost plastic wheel arch liners.
I must say, and you wonder why they weren't sold, and my guess is that the dealers wanted the business in a few years after the car was sold in having to repair the wheel arches that had rusted through. But didn't you and I bring these back from Moscow, carrying them through the Moscow underground?
We did. What a fuss that caused in the rush hour.
Indeed, because they are remarkably big when you have to carry them. I think we had 2 sets, and then at the airport, Customs said, "Why are you exporting Lada wheel arch liners?" And the answer was, "Well, why not? Because we own them."
I think for the benefit of viewers, we should probably say they stop all the water and salt and dirt being thrown up into the corners of the bodywork and stop the car rusting away. You know, by far the most useful thing you can fit to a Zhiguli.
They are, and with a pair of these, I mean, the car should last forever, really.
I bought it second hand, but it always gets me there. For both me and my neighbor run off vodka and a prayer. My Lada neighbor, it does deliver me where I want to go.
Now part of the Renault-Nissan Lada group, there are, we are told, plans for new Ladas to appear in the UK. Goodbye from Russian Hour.
Sometimes it break down, but fixing is easy. I just call my friend Gabor, who lives in Hungary. Sometimes he must make a call to the KGB, but it's worth it for the sweet ride.